mission objective when the idea of Panic Nation was discussed?
Well, the book came out of a meeting of the Millennium Group, which is a group of medical scientists who expressed exasperation with the number of scare stories appearing in the press and the various media about the food we eat and the way we live and the air we breathe. We're being scared stiff. We're being told that we're being poisoned by chemicals and toxins unless we eat this or that diet or examine our feces every day, or sleep with a magnet under our bed, or take coffee by the rectal route. We're going to have premature death, and we're going to get cancer, or our children will be dyslexic. And none of these claims have any scientific foundation, or if they do, they are so small that objectivity has been lost.
Right. Now, obesity, claimed in the book Panic Nation to be a latter-day condition, has it always been with us? I'm tempted to ask that because surely ancient remains would have given way to the fact that a person was a certain weight just by the wear and tear on the joints. So the question, has it always been with us, and what can we do to avoid it without resorting to dieting?
Well, I think the thing about obesity, you're absolutely right. There's evidence that in some cultures obesity has been regarded as evidence of wealth and fitness. This is particularly in the African and Middle Eastern cultures. But in European culture, obesity has never been a problem until recent times because the price of food and the availability of food has just not been there. Today, obesity is a problem. I think it's been grossly exaggerated in the papers. I mean, if you take, for example, childhood obesity, it's not an epidemic. And it basically, if you look at the figures, it affects the 10, 12, 14-year-olds. The younger children are no more obese now than they were 5 years ago. But the 10 to 14-year-olds are. By and large, this is what used to be called puppy fat. The evidence that it leads to adult obesity is very slim. Now, adult obesity, yes, certainly, we're living longer, we're getting fatter. But some of that is the fact that the measurement, the BMI, measures your height against your weight. And as you get older, particularly over the age of 70, you start to lose height. So the BMI goes up without you actually putting on any weight. Is it bad for you? Yes. There's no doubt that obesity, particularly as you get older, puts a strain on your heart, a strain on your joints, and there is a much higher instance of type 2 diabetes in the older patients.
I want to come on to type 2 diabetes a little bit later on, but before we get to that, you mentioned something earlier on which I didn't want to let slip away. After Christmas and New Year, we're assaulted by ads on the television and on the radio, and I'm probably saying this against my best interest here, offering detoxing kits to help us recover. My question to you is this: how badly do we need to buy these detox kits?
Well, I think they're absolute rubbish. Detoxification in mammals occurs in the liver and is under the influence of enzymes. The point about mammals is that we take in food that is not water-soluble. When animals lived in the sea, all their food was water-soluble, and they could excrete it in the kidney or an organ like the kidney if they're primitive. When they came onto land and started eating fats and fat-soluble substances, they had to render them water-soluble to be able to excrete them. And that is the process of detoxification. It occurs in the liver. It is under the influence of enzymes, and we know that called the P450 group of enzymes. And that whatever you take in the way of water and of chemicals and of so-called health foods, it doesn't influence the rate at which these enzymes work. It's set by nature.
I think we've established here, not with that question alone on the response, that we're talking about a very, very big industry where people spend a great deal of money and are sold the idea that this is for self-improvement. We're hearing often about food allergies. Are we hearing the truth? What is the truth?
It's an interesting subject. I'm afraid we don't know the answer to this. One has to separate food allergy, in which you've got an allergic response in the body, but you can measure that allergic response, and intolerance. There are a lot of people who are intolerant to things like gluten, lactose, and these upset them, and that's a matter of dose. If they take enough of it, they'll get tummy upsets, they'll get diarrhea and headaches. On the other hand, food allergies is when you take a specific antigen, such as peanuts or shrimps, and you have been sensitized to it, you get a dramatic response. Now, there's an increase in both those categories. One of the things about peanuts is the fact that peanut oil is an extremely good solubilizer. It's used in industry, it's used in the food industry to make fatty substance soluble in water. And as a result, we're exposed to more and more peanut oils. And peanut allergy is on the increase. There's always been allergy to shellfish and to shrimps. I don't think that's increased dramatically. As regards intolerance, certainly the older you get, the more intolerant you get, because you just don't metabolize foodstuffs at the same rate as you do when you're younger.
Well, we don't move as much as we used to. When I was 10 years of age, I was getting a speeding ticket on skates alone.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you know, there's one shining fact that comes out of our conversation so far, and that is water. It seems to be that water is pretty much the key to keeping an equilibrium.
Well, you can't exist without water, and you can't exist without salt. I mean, this is the very nature of the beast we are. We need water to excrete waste products, and the WHO quite rightly says that everybody should have access to 2 litres of clean water every day. It doesn't all have to be as water. When you have fruit and vegetables, you're taking in a lot of water. Cucumbers, 95% water. So provided the fluid intake is in excess of 2 litres a day, and it doesn't have to be water, it can be beer, it can be wine, it doesn't really matter. But the fluid intake has got to be in excess of 2 litres a day, and 99% of people can deal with that. There are some people whose kidney function is so poor that they can't concentrate the urine, and they need a little bit more. There's a misconception about the kidney. The kidney is a great big filter bed. It filters out about 12 litres of water a day and about 2.5 kilograms of salt every day. And the job of the kidney is to reabsorb the water that it needs and reabsorb the salt it needs. It isn't a matter of if you take in more water over and above the needs of the kidney, you'll just run to the toilet more frequently.
Right. I just want to remind everyone we're talking about the book Panic Nation. It claims to expose the myths that we're told about food and health. And the co-editor of the book is Stanley Feldman, who's with us talking on talkSPORT this morning. Let me just ask you one of the major concerns in the general public's list of, 5 top questions they would want to get into deep conversation around is diabetes, in particular diabetes 2. And in Panic Nation, you don't recognise the connection between diabetes 2 and sugar in one's diet. This is diametrically opposed, in many people's view, to the general medical view on the subject. How do you explain that?
Well, this, of course, is Vincent Marks, who's my co-editor's special subject. He is a diabetologist. The point is that sugar per se is no different from any other form of carbohydrate. When you take a potato or bread or pasta, it is broken down in the gut to form and absorbed as sugar. The only difference between that and taking sugar in as a white crystalline substance is the rate at which it enters the bloodstream. Now, that's not unimportant, because if it enters the bloodstream very rapidly, you secrete insulin that makes you feel hungry. But at the end of the day, the amount of sugar you get into your blood doesn't depend upon the amount of crystalline sugar you take, it's the amount of carbohydrate you take. And there's no doubt that a high carbohydrate load as it were, exhausts the pancreas. And so in older people, fat people tend to get diabetes type 2. It's interesting that young fat people, very, very rare. There's only been, I think, last year, there were 3 or 4 cases of type 2 diabetes in children. It's a disease basically of older people who have exposed their body to too much carbohydrate, which turns into sugar in their blood. But it isn't a fault of sugar per se.
Right. So we've established, not just in your response to that question, but in an earlier conversation, that more exercise, the older one gets. I think, how would the Americans put it? The validation of the age format. We need to concentrate on keeping that exercise up, because it's obviously to everyone's benefit. Also keeping plenty of water. And there's also the pressure group phenomena. You know what this means. I don't know. I just know that a chapter in Panic Nation covers the pressure group phenomena, if only I could say it. Why did you dedicate a chapter to pressure groups?
Well, this is written by Dick Taverne, Lord Taverne. And, you know, all these, a number of these scares, not all, a number of these scares come from single-issue pressure groups. And it distorts the argument. Many of the people presenting them are not medical experts and not even scientists. You go to the Soil Association, it's not scientists who present their facts, or their supposed facts. It's people with belief systems. And it all really started with Rachel Carson and her book, The Silent Spring, which was the beginning of the Green Movement. And as a result of that, DDT was banned. Following the banning of DDT, 2 million people died the following year from malaria. It's a silly. It doesn't take things in perspective because it's not scientifically validated. Now, I don't say some pressure groups haven't got a point, but we were talking about salt earlier. The pressure groups to try and stop people eating too much salt have now had a great influence. They're trying to take salt out of cheese and making our food virtually tasteless, because salt contributes enormously to our sense of taste. But the evidence, if you look through all the publications, you find that the evidence that a low-salt diet lowers high blood pressure is minimal. In fact, in some cases, it actually puts up blood pressure. The Cochrane review of the last 11 major
You were just saying that
surveys show
a low-salt intake can actually put up blood pressure.
Yeah. The reason for this is medical. It puts down the blood flow to the kidney. It causes the kidney to secrete renin, which causes your blood pressure to go up. This is why you really need scientists to tackle this, and not be left to the celebrities who present themselves as being experts.
You really claim to expose the myths we're told about food and health, and you know, everything that I've heard you say tonight has caused me to rethink what I've heard on popular television and radio programmes and in the popular press. So Stanley Feldman, thank you, as co-editor of Panic Nation, for giving us a chance to take a second take on this whole issue. Panic Nation is published by John Blake. It's available now at $7.99. I'm Mike Allen. This is talkSPORT. John Gaunt returns to talkSPORT today, and that means that James Whale is back between the traces at 10 o'clock for until 1. Be a treat. James Whale back between 10 o'clock and 1 tonight on talkSPORT. If you'd like to be part of the programme after the news, it's 08704 20 20 20. We're looking at the stories that everyone else is going to be talking about, but we're doing it early. I'm Mike Allen. This is talkSPORT. 08704 20 20 20.
On 1089 and 1053 AM.
Who didn't falsify and who didn't invent.
Around the world.
There is only one real peace.
Around the clock. Order! From the Sky News Centre. talkSPORT on the hour news.
The top stories from the Sky News Centre at 5.
On 1089 and 1053 AM. talkSPORT.
Good morning, talkSPORT. It's Mike Allen, in for Mike Mendoza, who's absolutely fine, thank you. He's been covering all sorts of stuff, so he'll be back in the saddle, as per usual, next Friday night, Saturday morning. We thought we'd look at the newspapers this morning and give you a genuine feel for how the day is going to break out. On the front page of The Independent, the 6 a.m. ceasefire takes effect, and now the real war begins, they claim. There's quite an interesting story following that theme on page 3 in that paper. Apparently, President Bush viewed war in Lebanon as a curtain raiser for an attack on Iran. So all those things we were talking about, and people said, of course not, are quite likely true. If you'd like to be part of the programme, love to have your company. The number to use is 08704 20 20 20. You can email talksport.net or text me on 81089. A reminder that the Alan Brazil Sports Breakfast starts at 6 o'clock as usual. Mike Parry and Graham Beecroft are looking after the shop, and former Liverpool captain Ronnie Whelan and Chelsea legend John Hollins will give their verdict on the Community Shield. That and many other things. Helping me keep a stock of the newspapers and make sure that he's not just enjoying having clean hands, but get a bit of ink on them as well, is George, his floor production manager. Do you like being floor production manager?
I like producing the floor, yes.
Yes.
It's jolly good fun.
The floor's got to be addressed. Who can we send it to? What have you picked up looking at the papers this morning?
Well, there's a lot of stuff in the papers about Kate Moss this morning because, as you mentioned earlier, she's sporting a rather flashy engagement-type ring.
I'm sure. If she had been in a band, she would have had somebody called a ring roadie.
Yeah, well, the size of it's almost bigger than her head. It's incredible. But yeah, the question is whether she's actually got engaged to Pete Doherty, who supposedly she split up from due to all his antics that have been well publicised in all the papers and on the TV news.
I'm so glad you said Pete Doherty, because everyone insists on pronouncing it Doherty, and it's not.
Well, is it Doherty or is it
No,
Doherty?
there's no C.
No, but
it's D-O-H.
Some DOHs pronounce it Doherty anyway, don't they?
If you know the truth, don't just sit there looking smug. Give us a call, okay? The number to use, 08704 20 20 20. So that's Kate and Pete. I think is that in the Sun?
That's in the Sun. It's in the Mirror. It's all over the place. But she's not the only girl who's chosen a slightly dodgy lover, because if you look at the cover of the Daily Mirror, my love for terror love suspect, the teenage girlfriend of Jets bomb suspect Donald Stewart White, has sold her story to the Daily Mirror, and she explains how she met him before he converted to Islam. She insisted last night, "I can't believe he's a terrorist. I was shaking and crying when she heard the news." She said, "I kept saying there must have been some mistake." And of course none of these people have been charged yet, so it may well be a mistake.
Yes, there's coverage across the press, not necessarily with varying intensity, on the backlash of that, and maybe a little rebuke for John Reid that he maybe gave away a little bit too much when it comes to naming and shaming people, and claiming that the ringleaders have been caught, or worse to that effect, when it came to possible terrorist allegations.
Yeah, well, it's very premature because the police have only got till Wednesday to charge them with something. They've had them since the end of last week, and no charges as yet have come through. In fact, one's been released, and another guy is awaiting a hearing this morning to see whether he'll be released. I wouldn't be surprised if more people are going to be released before that Wednesday deadline kicks in.
And of course not alone in his quest to bring us up to the minute information, because just a little before that, the Bank of England put on their website the names of the people's bank accounts they'd frozen. I mean, does this not strike you that maybe people are sort of scoring off of the back of each other?
Absolutely, yeah. I think they're all trying to get their noses in there before Tony Blair hands in his notice.
That's a lovely expression, isn't it? Noses in the trough.
Absolutely.
Some nice pictures of the Blairs on holiday, hanging out their smalls.
Yeah, he's got very flashy Bermuda shorts on there on his Good Vibrations yacht.
Yes, I noticed it floral, and interestingly enough, yesterday's press had a picture of David Cameron, the Tories' Brave New World leader, also with floral shorts on.
Yeah, maybe it's a game of one-upmanship there as well.
But so far, still no news on who's got the wind machine in their pocket.
No, but the Daily Express says Blair all washed up on the inside pages. It says the Prime Minister's priority as the nation battles chaos of terror plots. Nice clean beach clothes. It's got Tony Blair hanging up his pants and various other bits and bobs on his washing line there on his yacht. So it's nice to see he's keeping himself busy.
Yes, and quietly reassuring. Of course, according to some people, the reason that he's decided to keep up the holiday plans is a show of bravado against those who would try to diminish our significance on the planet. By going away, he's implying in the gesture that he's got everyone right across the situation, whilst those of us at home with 3.5 inches of sense suddenly realise that team leader's not in place. So supposing they can't get him, supposing there's an electrical blackout, supposing the satellite that takes his carrier signal for his mobile PM-type phone isn't in operation.
Well, then we've got to rely on old Prezza, haven't we, to run the country smoothly.
Oh, no reason to doubt that. Everything's in place. I see James Whale is back tonight at 10 o'clock on talkSPORT. I think he's missed his nighttime show.
Yeah, he's been enjoying the daytime, but I think he does miss the nighttime. You can tell he's itching to say certain things that might get him in trouble if he said them at that hour of the morning that he's been covering So, yeah,
I
no
think you can
doubt
take that to the bank.
he'll be on controversial form as always.
Yes, and talking of controversial form, John Gaunt returns this morning. So, after he's been away for 2 weeks, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's right, and Hawksby and Jacobs are back this afternoon, so it's a hat-trick of talkSPORT presenters back in their usual slots this week.
What is that expression? All the boys are jolly. Interesting enough, if I said to you, descent among two well-known personalities, you might think I was referring to Paul McCartney and Lady McCartney, Lord and Lady Cannot. So, old Lady McCartney can't say it. But there's a very interesting profile piece by Joan Clark in the Daily Mail. The Bond star, Sean Connery's ex-wife, is apparently breaking a 40-year silence to give her first account of a marriage blighted by violence, jealousy and astonishing meanness. Do you know, one always has to question 40 years. You know, to keep quiet for 40 years and then start to talk about it. How bad can it be? It's something you'll no doubt be enjoying as you open the thing, but that's amongst the things you'll be looking at this morning. As the pass rate creeps up ever nearer 100% on A-levels, it's very fashionable for certain persons to say, well, of course, it wasn't like that when I was a lad. Well, the head of government's exam watchdog was accused of defending the indefensible yesterday after insisting that A-levels are not getting easier. Ken Boston is the chief executive of the Qualifications and Curriculum Authority, describes critics of the qualification as elitists who are living in the 50s. That may or may not be true, but the way the questions are laid out now is significantly different to the way they're laid out in the 50s. And that alone is somewhat of a clue as to what you might consider to be easier or worthy of some reconsider. That's the pass rate, creeping ever nearer 100% for A-level students. Were you a happy student, George? I mean, were you someone that people looked at and said, he must be on some sort of chemical enhancement because he's the only one in the classroom smiling?
I was relatively happy in my later years, in my A-level years. I think I was happy because I'd managed to drop all those subjects that I didn't really enjoy and focus on the subjects I like. And that's what I think was wrong with this recent AS system that they tried to bring in, where you did sort of twice as many subjects for 1 year and then narrowed it down. Because then you end up focusing all your time on the subjects that you don't really enjoy and don't really know much about, and the subjects that you do enjoy end up suffering. So it's, you know, everyone loses that way.
Yes, I sometimes wonder how destructive it might be for some of those subjects you choose under that heading of, you know, I'm doing this, you know, just to broaden my area of influence. Who are you doing it to impress?
Exactly. Why can't you just...
It's not you.
No.
You know, probably not your parents, because they know where your true loyalties lie in terms of interest. So maybe you're saying, it's like going for a job and lying about your qualifications. Oh, yes, I've got A-levels in advanced physics. You know.
It's probably only for league table reasons that they even brought that in the first place, I'd imagine.
See, only a person as well-rounded as you would have said that.
Absolutely.
I see we've got a call from Doug who's in Bournemouth. Have you been to Bournemouth?
I've never been to Bournemouth, no.
It's surprisingly mild. Hello, Doug.
How are you going, Mike?
Well, we're having a nice time here, actually. The last time I went to Bournemouth, somebody invited me up to a hotel on the cliff, and I thought I was in an Agatha Christie movie.
Well, I won't name the hotel you're talking about, but never mind. If the gentleman friend you're talking to has never been to Bournemouth, tell him to give me a ring. He can come there and stay with me for a night.
That's very kind.
That's disturbingly frank.
Yeah.
Going back to the gentleman you were discussing on the food and whatever his name was, I have to...
Oh, Panic Nation, the book Panic Nation.
Thank you very much indeed.
Stanley Feldman, yes. He was interesting, wasn't he?
Was he ever interesting? Was he ever interesting? I have never heard such a load of balderdash in my life.
Really?
Quite frankly. I would love to hear this guy have a chat with Michael von Stratton.
Well, they're approaching these areas from different and, well, obviously totally opposed angles, aren't they?
They are indeed. Now, when the man talks about drinking 2 litres of liquid per day...
I think he was... Yes.
Right. No, I haven't got the transcript. You can listen to it, or I can play it back to you. Doesn't have to be water. It can be beer. It can be anything, he said.
He even mentioned wine, didn't he?
Beer, wine, it could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to... cucumber contains 95% of water, which we all know this. But the other part of the cucumber can affect a diabetic person.
Don't forget, he was only referring to diabetes 2.
Yes, but even diabetes 2 can sort of knock you into land where people love you, you know. I don't know, Mike. I'm not declining. I listened to what he was saying, but I've not read his book. I will go and find it and read it. But I mean,
I think it's terribly interesting, and the thing that caught my attention and prompted me to go with him as a guest is that it was a different take on problems, and I'm not necessarily including you in this. I don't know whether any of this applies to you, and I'm not asking you, so I don't want to embarrass you. But one of the things we've been brought up into in the last 15 or 20 years is a scare system.
Absolutely right.
And I sometimes wonder if that alone isn't producing a negative effect in many of us. A negative effect that, in truth, is harmful to our future health.
I hear what you're saying, and I partially agree with you. Let's go very, very quickly. My late wife was diabetic.
Really? I'm sorry to hear that.
No. She was born in 1944. She contracted diabetes when she was 4 years of age, and she died, 15 years ago through the diabetic disease. So through doctors and whatever, and I understand that medical science is moving and things should do this and things should do that, but I really think that when the man were referring to diabetes 2, which is when you say tablets as opposed to injections, blah, 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 I'd love to read his book, and if you can give me the name of it again and the publisher, I'll go out and buy it and read it. And I hear what you said. We listen to things from different tangents in this day and age.
And you know, that can be so determined. There are certain events that surround the passing of my late father that really I find very, very moving. Anyway, the book that you're referring to is called Panic Nation, and it's published by John Blake.
Right. I'll go out and buy it. I will read it, and I'll find the man's name. I'll give him a ring, and I'll have a chat with him. Meanwhile, instead of drinking my pint of water, I'll go and have a pint of beer.
Tell them it's under doctor's orders.
Well, I've told him. Medicinal purposes only, sir.
And don't forget, no operating of heavy machinery or writing large cheques.
And you know where Mike Mendoza is?
Well, I'm not at liberty to speak, but I think he's in the UK.
I'll tell you where he is.
Where is he?
Down here in Bournemouth, digging bags of sand so he can take them back to Brighton Beach. Mike, good to talk to you. Love your programme. Speak to you later.
Take care. Have a good day. I'm Mike Allen. This is talkSPORT. If you'd like to be part of it, the number is 08704 20 20 20, or you can text me 81089. Now, go on. I used to have a file of facts, you know. I can handle this sort of information. I can create a window for you anytime you want. Or you can email talksport.net. Good morning. Do you know it's nearly 20 after 5?
talkSPORT Traffic and Travel.
M5 due to a vehicle fire between junction 19 at the A369 and junction 20 at Claydon. If you're out and about in Surrey, there's a few town centres that are just passable due to flooding. Some are closed off at the moment. In Ash on Ash Street, that's partially blocked off both ways at the moment. In Lightwater, the northbound Lightwater bypass, the A322, is closed off. And in Chobham, we've got Chertsey Road, the A319, and Chobham Road, the A3046, both closed off due to severe flooding. Now in Cornwall, in Penryn, due to an accident, the Penryn bypass, the A39, is blocked off both ways near to the B3292. And finally, if you're heading out from any UK airport, do take extra time to check in. There are those additional security checks still in taking place at the moment, and so do check with your operator before you travel. Mary Jacobs, talkSPORT Traffic and Travel.
talkSPORT Traffic and Travel. The football is back.
Have you ever seen anything like it?
The Premiership returns this Saturday on talkSPORT.
Nearly 21 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is talkSPORT. Bad news. The heat. Do you remember the heat wave? It's put 4p on a loaf of bread. In the papers today, these are some of the stories that people are going to be talking about. Bread prices will rise as much as 4p a loaf because of a poor harvest blamed on the hot summer and higher energy bills, according to bakers. Rank Hovis, No, it's not a comment. That's really what they're called. And ADM Milling, Britain's biggest millers, are increasing the price of their flour by around £29 a tonne next month. The National Association of Master Bakers had expected this to be put between 2 and 4 pence on a loaf. When they came out with the non-carbohydrate diet, I'm sure you remember great lengths were aspired to by the millers because everyone going on the Atkins diet was rejecting carbohydrate, which meant bread. So that was the end of sandwiches. And a sandwich chain around the UK was offering breadless sandwiches. In other words, there was lettuce and, well, general salad sandwich in a plastic box. Still no news on those who left it in the box and just took a bite of it anyway. Also, to be talked about today, the decision to go for a ceasefire and an opportunity for Lebanon, hopefully, and Israel to find some peace living next door to each other. There are those who yesterday were absolutely adamant this could never possibly be. Maybe you'll have some thoughts on it. The number to call 08704 20 20 20. John is in York and he's called the programme. Hello, John, good morning.
Oh, good morning, sir. It's just that you've been talking about, the diets and things. You've had a few people on who say that, you can drink a lot of fluids.
I think we're, generally speaking, people are talking about drinking 2 litres of fluids a day, aren't they?
But a lot of people don't realise that your body contains a lot of water-soluble vitamins, minerals and salts and what have you. If you drink too much fluid, you see these people are always drinking from bottles of water. You can actually flush a lot of the minerals from vitamins from your system.
I was talking to someone from the medical profession the other day, and I said, in the 90s, if you were walking around, as people are walking around now, carrying a bottle of water, they would have thought